I'm Will Yeoman, and welcome to another episode of the pod Well Travelled. I'm joined today by Travel Editor Stephen Scourfield and travel journalist and motoring writer Penny Thomas. Welcome to the pod, both.
Thank you, Will.
Stunned silence.
Strange silence.
Yeah.
I was waiting for Penny. She was waiting.
Yes.
Yeah, morning, Will.
The gentleman
Hi.
that you are. Yeah, good to hear from you, Stephen. So I think we're going to look. We've got a bit of a north and south theme happening today. We're going to start south, as in the southwest of Western Australia, with Penny, who's just come back from a weekend away, and her partner was facing the dilemma of not being able to surf because there was no swell. He was forced to do other things, God forbid.
Favourite activity when we go down south. So we just decided to get away for the long weekend.
Yes.
And we actually just booked it last week, like quite last minute as well.
Quite easy. There's plenty of availability.
Yeah,
and
we were going to stay with a friend and then decided that we just saw something pop up, this little farm stay that was reasonably sort of priced as well. So
that was Metric Up, was it?
Yeah, along Gale Road. It's actually called Villa Bertelli. Really nice, one bedroom. It's like a little cabin sort of house, which was just nice and easy and in a really good position for us.
Wow.
We decided to head down on the Saturday morning quite early just because we don't like being stuck in traffic. So that's our tip, is to wake up at 5:30 and sort of, instead of going down Friday afternoon or in those sort of peak hours. We got down there, went to the beach, just sort of hung out, but there was no swell for Paul Vaughan, so he was sort of twiddling his thumbs and had to hang out with me. But that meant we had to figure out some nice activities to do, which, if you know me, it's usually food and wine and the occasional book. But I'll just sort of touch on, I guess, some things that we did get up to and some really nice venues that are sort of popping up down there. So if you're a fan of beer, which I know that my partner is, and I do like to taste the odd beer as well, there's a new venue in Quarramup, which opened up just at the end of last year. It's called the Servo Tap House, and it's along sort of the main drag there in Cowtown, and it's in the old sort of service station or mechanic building, which is quite interesting. And they have a great selection of local beers and international beers that I guess are not the normal sorts of beers that you would get at any regular sort of brewery, which is interesting to see, and it sort of it lures a different sort of crowd, which is sort of nice down there as well. It's just a different thing to a winery or your average venue. So some of the beers that you can find on tap are sort of like the Belgian blonde sort of beers. You get a lot of sort of different European wheat German beers. There was a Californian pale ale on the menu too. They had beers from Scotland, and then they've also got the sort of modern fruity beers that are quite popular at the moment, along with other local sort of suppliers like Beer Farm. So they're on tap too, and I guess they also do pizza there on some nights and have live music. So it's just a nice sort of spot to hang out if you're ever passing through. You don't need bookings or anything like that, and you can just sort of pop in. So that's what we did and had a great time. And the next day, I would say the next venue we went, not in the same day. Following on from that, we actually did go and check out Beer Farm, which is a really sort of popular institution
I've
down
been there too. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
It's in Metro Cup. It was right near our accommodation. For those who haven't been there, they do really tasty food, excellent selection of beers, a great venue that's sort of quirky and got all the right stuff. If you park in the wrong spot, there's this big sign that sort of says the cars will be crushed and turned into beer cans. So it's got a lot of fun sort of little quirky elements to it, which I sort of appreciate. And it's really, as much as breweries aren't usually targeted at kids, they have
it's quite family friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of sort of playgrounds and different sort of water sort of contraptions that you can use that kids have a great time with, especially in summer. So that was nice to visit again. And another one that I was sort of blown away by was Wise Wines, which is sort of in the Eagle Bay area. I had never been there before. We just popped in after going to Bunker Bay, and it was a beautiful setting. We had 3 sort of shared dishes between the two of us and a glass of wine each. It all came under $100, which we thought was actually quite reasonable.
That is very good.
Yeah, for the quality of food as well.
Okay.
it's not often in this day and age that we're sort of surprised by the cheapness of a venue.
And with the quality still there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were lucky. We just popped in and asked if they had a booking, and they usually require bookings, but there was a little spot for us outside. So really happy with that, and the service was impeccable too.
Good work.
For usually a really busy period down south, we made the most of it and had a great time. So,
fantastic. Well, thanks for filling us in.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing venues there, I'm sure. A lot more going on down south, as most of us here in Western Australia know. But Stephen, you're going to take us in a completely different direction and vast distances. We're heading north, very, very, very north. Tell us about Northern Lights.
Yes, well, very interesting. Just before I get to that, just to hear about that sort of availability as well, which hasn't been part of the story here in Western Australia for the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm glad you got accommodation booking and then the meal.
That's amazing.
It's great. It's quite interesting. Things moving more freely. One of the subjects that really crops up a lot at the moment with the audience, with people contacting us, are the Northern Lights. It seems, it's interesting how subjects come up. Antarctica is certainly one of them at the moment, and the Northern Lights is the other. Right across, the readerships of all the things, and the audience of all the things that we do, and age ranges as well. It's seeing the Northern Lights, and perhaps it's just, it's just a moment, isn't it, after COVID? I've just been, the point with the Northern Lights is that, firstly, obviously, you need to understand the season. And really, I think they're going to be, obviously it's only in the northern hemisphere, but there's, and you need to be there pretty much April to August. That's roughly the season. So if you look at, but it's right around the northern hemisphere. So the point I'm making is that this appears a lot on cruise itineraries, particularly at the moment, out of Norway, out of Svalbard, and you'll see the Northern Lights appearing a lot as, part of the kind of cruise guarantee. But of course, you can see them from the land, obviously. In Norway, I'd be going to Tromsø, which is, in the Arctic Circle. I'd be going to perhaps Hammerfest. These are great places to see it. I mean, you can see the Northern Lights, obviously, in Iceland. Reykjavik, you'll see them from your hotel in Reykjavik. And then, but think around as well. I mean, the best place I've ever seen them myself consistently is in Greenland, in Kangerlussuaq, and you'll see that on cruise itineraries there. But also, on the land, Alaska and Canada. So 90% of the land rather than the sea from which you can see this phenomena is in Canada. And their Yellowknife is fantastic. I've seen them in Yukon, Whitehorse, which is, a town I like very much, Dawson City. So you can be seeing them on the land, even as an extension of a cruise. Fairbanks is directly under what they call the Aurora Oval, which is the sort of the range of land in which they're most frequently seen. So in Fairbanks, you're pretty sure of seeing them. On that very point, if I just go back to the cruise thing, I'd just love to point everybody towards a cruise company Norwegian cruise company called Hurtigruten, and I'll spell that because it's an unusual word for most of us. It's Hurtigruten, and it's sort of quite exciting. I mean, this company's actually celebrating its 130th anniversary this year, 2023. So, and a lot of the early cruising was more sort of coastal deliveries up and down the Norwegian coast into the Arctic Circle. So fantastic company with a great history. For what they offer, which is, for example, the North Cape Express, which is one of their cruises. It's a 16-day cruise up the Norwegian coast. and also visits Finland, Sweden. But for the Northern Lights, I'm thinking September to April for that. And what I really like is, firstly, on a lot of their sailings, they have a solo guarantee that for solo travellers there's no supplement. And secondly, they have a guarantee that if you sail on one of their longer voyages and don't see the Northern Lights, they will give you a free voyage on one of their, I think it's 7 days, 8 days itineraries, shorter itineraries, to have another go at it, which is a
that is incredible,
very fair thing to do. But I think having a look through Hurtigruten, normally pronounced without the G, I'm told, is a really good way to see it because of all those guarantees and because of their complete understanding of the pattern of the Northern Lights.
Sure.
So I just do a little bit of science. What are the Northern Lights? These often green, spiring and lights and curtains of lights in the sky. It's really weird, incredible thing to stand under. So the sun is at the centre of the solar system, and the magnetic fields twist and distort as the sun rotates, and they become sort of knotted together and burst into sunspots, what we call sunspots. So mostly this happens in pairs and can be almost the size of the Earth's diameter. Okay? The next element of this whole scientific scenario comes in, which is that obviously the centre of the sun is boiling and bubbling at 15 million degrees Celsius. Particles escape from the sunspot regions on the surface. Speeding particles of plasma, known as solar wind, come into space, and 40 hours later, these highly charged electrons reach us and collide with the Earth's atmosphere. So these are sort of, bursting solar winds coming out of sunspots, which are, as I say, at 15 million degrees C. So that's what's causing this to happen. And it's wild. It's wild. Have I lost you with the science or bored you with the science?
No, not at all. I was also wondering, so you haven't mentioned the scientific name, Aurora Borealis. Is that
Aurora Borealis.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I was wondering
That's right. Which is named for the Roman goddess of dawn.
There you go. Aurora. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Aurora Borealis, exactly. Look, lots of ways to do it. Look out for cruise itineraries. Look out for Hurtigruten, Viking companies which are based in those regions. They'll all have such and such Northern Lights. Look out for Svalbard. That sort of region is a really safe bet. But don't forget that on the land, I'd be heading to, obviously Alaska, Yukon, thinking about Fairbanks, Yellowknife. How's that?
Amazing. I want to ask you, Penny, have you seen the Northern Lights?
No, but it's on my bucket list for sure.
It's probably on a lot of people's bucket list, isn't it?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, interesting thing. Out of interest, the most incredible experience I ever had with the Northern Lights was in Greenland. There's a long fjord. It's about 190 kilometres long, east-west.
Okay.
With very steep sides, and sort of sailed up there, and the lights were just because it's very, very dark, and obviously because you've got dark sides in this canyon, basically. But it just went on all night. You honestly thought that a hand was going to come and grab you and pluck you up into the sky. It was
sounds incredible,
extraordinary, just extraordinary. Interesting that after like an hour or an hour and a half, people kind of got bored with it and went to bed because you become so familiar.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, that was even possible, that you would just tire on.
Yeah, hard to imagine.
Clearly you did, yeah. Well, there we go, north and south. Okay. A lot of varied experiences there. Some more accessible than others, depending on where in the world you're listening from. Thanks, guys, for being on the Pod Well Travelled. Looking forward to catching up with both of you, or one of you, or whatever, and maybe some other guests on the show next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, guys. Bye.